Here's where we'll discuss our recommended design workshops. Each workshop should be conducted from the SAP test system of a customer that is able to exchange documents over the SAP Digital Supplier Network. Check out some of our prerequisites here before starting your workshop. 1. Make sure you have supplier accounts set up for both standard and enterprise accounts. Have the ability to create a purchase order in SAP. Also, the ability to receive an order confirmation, advance ship notice, and an invoice in SAP as well. Lastly, be sure to set up an email account where we can view the standard PO and present the layout to our customer. As you can see, we've broken this out into 5 separate workshops, but perhaps there could possibly be more if needed. The scope and requirements of the customer need to be considered when scheduling your workshops. Here you'll find recommendations for participants, the potential outcome of each workshop, and roughly the timing of how long each workshop should last. With the Digital Supplier Network, we suggest you divide the workshops into segments. First would be the Purchase Order Design Workshop. This would include the purchase order, order confirmation, advance ship notice, change and cancel PO. And of course, we should also cover the PDF PO print layout, as well as the supplier mobile application. Any special requirements needed to support high volume vendors, such as additional new fields or customizations, should also be done and discussed during these sessions. So anything pertaining to the basics of the purchase order should be done in your first workshop. It should take somewhere around 2 hours to complete. Be sure to get the business to sign off as completed and understood. The procurement team should be in attendance with AP, legal, and IT as optional participants for various reasons. This could be for terms and conditions, advanced workflow, or maybe just routing of the documents. The second workshop should revolve around the invoice. So we're looking at the non-PO invoice, credit and debit memos, all the details related to shipping, special handling, and the tax. Be sure to cover all tax types. The recommended time should be around 2 hours to complete, with the business signing off on the invoice layout. And after that, we'll go into our deep dive workshops. So we'll go back to our PO, but unlike workshop 1 focusing on the document, we'll now focus on the configuration, transaction rules, country-based rules. For example, are we allowing the order confirmation to be sent or not? Do we require attachments to be sent? Focus on the layout in workshop 1 where we get our layout completed, and here we ask which fields are mandatory and what other options can we explore. For our invoice deep dive, we'll reconfirm all the business rules again, briefly touch base on the format of the invoice from workshop 2, and ask which fields are mandatory. Now the thing is, we say 2+ hours here because if we have more countries in scope, we may have different business rules per country. Keep in mind that invoice configuration can be based by country if the customer requires. For example, we may have one customer in New Zealand and one in India. We can have 2 different sets of invoicing transaction rules. So you may need to cover 2 different workshops to cover the details such as taxes. And finally, we'll cover the workshop for the administrator. This workshop is primarily for our IT team, but others are welcome. You may ask why IT only? Because the DSN account will be used by typically in most cases 1 or 2 people. There is no change management for the Digital Supplier Network. So that means everything the customer was doing yesterday basically stays the same. Because the customer still uses SAP to create the purchase order and receive, the DSN account should hardly be used. All of the attachments that the suppliers send across, they can also be received in SAP. So the only changes happening on the DSN would be our business rules. For example, today we allow 10% increase on quantity, but now we're increased to 20% tomorrow. Also, there is no single sign-on needed for the Digital Supplier Network. Thank you, and this concludes Lesson 6.